Good morning. Let's start today's discussion. Today we will discuss about the chemical weapon convention. You know, Second World War is very unique because the first time the nuclear weapon was used that ended the war. Since that day, the competition to acquire sophisticated weapons which can cause massive damage, killing of large number of people, destroying massive assets. The search for that weapons which can cause large scale damage to life and property started. And these weapons which can cause massive damage are called as WMD. They are called as WMD or weapons of mass destruction. Fine. What they are called as? They are called as WMD or weapons of mass destruction. And that includes nuclear weapon, that includes nuclear weapons, biological weapons, and chemical weapons. Fine. So these three, like the nuclear weapon, the biological weapon, and the chemical weapon, are included in the category called WMD or weapons of mass destruction. Okay, because they are huge, has the possibility of causing mass destruction of life and property in massive value. Fine. And their importance was felt by the community, global community. Nation after nations, they started acquiring or the research for acquiring these weapons. They started their research for acquiring these weapons. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. We'll back again. So these weapons, the nuclear weapon, the biological weapon, and the chemical weapons are called as WMD, or weapons of mass destruction, because of their massive, destructive nature and character. So use of these, as they can cause massive destruction of life and property, of lives and property. So branded as WMD. Knowingly this, humanity knowing this very well, that these weapons are WMD category or can cause massive damage, nation go on acquiring this or conducted research for developing this. Fine. The research to acquire such weapon or develop such weapons, so gain momentum. More and more countries, they started or they joined the race to acquire such weapons which can bring massive destruction. Fine. So one such is the chemical weapons. What is a chemical weapon? Chemical weapons, so are some chemicals which when used can cause massive destruction of life and property. Chemistry as a science has its humanitarian use, but using the same chemicals in different proportion, weapons can be developed which can lead to destruction of life and damage the property. Fine. So these are called as chemical weapons. And once these weapons were developed, so then discussion was launched to bring legislation to control these weapons. Fine. And that is popularly known as the Chemical Weapon Convention. Hope it is very clear right now. What is this? Chemical Weapon Convention. Chemical Weapon Convention, officially the Convention on Prohibition of the Development, Production, Stockpiling and Use of Chemical Weapons and on their destruction, is an arms control treaty. Fine. That means the CWC is an arms control treaty. Which aims to control what? Chemical arms and weapons. Research, development, production, storing, use and destruction of the created weapons. all are regulated by this treaty. And who regulates it? There's an organization called OPCW, Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or OPCW. Okay, coming to OPCW, it is an intergovernmental organization based at The Hague in Netherlands. And it has been mandated to control or to supervise all activities in the nuclear domain, as well as to ensure that the nations who have developed nuclear weapons must destroy them for the safety and security of the humanity. So, for safety and security of humanity, these have to be destroyed. Man has developed these weapons, but once the weapons are developed, they are used and their devastating impact was visible to the humanity. So it is time again to think of destroying it, because this only can save the humanity from its destruction. Fine. The treaty entered into force on 29th April 1997 and prohibits the large-scale use, deployment, production, stockpiling and transfer of chemical weapons and their precursors, except for very limited purposes. But the limited purposes are for research, for medical use, for pharmaceutical use, or protective use. These chemicals are allowed to be used for research. We know the research goes on in chemical science. There is a Nobel Prize in chemistry awarded every year as the highest contribution in the domain of chemistry. So research in chemistry has brought many benefits for the humanity. So that cannot be controlled and should not be. Similarly, in medical science, chemistry is used in preparing the drugs in the medical science and in pharmacy. And also some of these chemicals are used to protect man from many problems, starting from fire to many other things, like the fire extinguishers is a chemical. Okay, so the treaty entered into force in 1997. Although it prohibits the research, production, stockpiling, use of chemical weapons, but chemicals, when it is used for civilian purpose, are allowed to be kept beyond the purview of this international treaty. Fine. Moving further, the main obligation of member states under the convention is to effect this prohibition as well as the destruction of all current chemical weapons. Because the nations who have already developed chemical weapons must destroy them, which is called as the dismantling of the chemical weapons. And this dismantling process must be under international supervision. And as per the Chemical Weapon Convention, the intergovernmental agency called OPCW, okay, has been created. And this OPCW has been given the mandate to supervise the destruction or dismantling of the chemical weapons. Fine. So before going to discuss the practical use and objection to this, let check what is the chemical weapon, and what are the threats associated with chemical weapons. Okay. The convention has provisions for systematic evaluation of chemical production facilities as well as for investigations of allegation of use and production of chemical weapons based on intelligence or other state parties. Some chemicals which have been used extensively in warfare but have numerous large-scale industrial use, such as phosgene, are highly regulated. However, certain notable exceptions exist. Chlorine gas is highly toxic, but being pure element and extremely widely used for peaceful purposes like cleaning drinking water, is not officially listed as a chemical weapon. Fine. The main obligations of the states under this convention to effect this prohibition as well as the destruction of all current chemical weapons. All destruction activity must be under the OPCW inspection. As of March 2021, 193 countries have become party to the Chemical Weapon Convention and accept its obligations. Okay, so this shows how popular and widely acceptable this treaty has become. 193 countries around the world, they have accepted this Chemical Weapon Convention. United Nations Organization has also equal 193 members. So this particular intergovernmental convention has also been ratified by 193 members countries of the world. This shows the importance given to this convention by the international community or by different countries. So they agreed and signed and ratified the Chemical Weapon Convention, realizing the threat posed by this chemical weapon. Fine. They very well realize that how the chemical weapon are a threat and only international combined effort can eliminate this threat of chemical weapon from the mind of humanity. Israel has signed but not ratified the agreement, while three other UN members, Egypt, North Korea, and South Sudan, have neither signed nor acceded to the treaty. Okay. Recently, the state of Palestine has deposited instrument of accession to the Chemical Weapon Convention in 2018. In September 13, Syria acceded to the convention as part of an agreement for destruction of Syria's chemical weapons. So there is allegation of use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime in Syria against the demonstrators who are demonstrating against the government of the country. The Assad regime for being autocratic. The Jasmine Revolution or Arab Spring that spread to the country resulted in massive demonstration against the regime, and there is allegation that the government of the country led by Bashar Assad has used the chemical weapon against its own citizens only to create a sense of fear psychosis in their mind of the demonstrators. If this is true, use of the weapon is true because its ramification was witnessed by the global community. How this weapon was used and how the people suffered there. Okay, so it was. And during that same period, the OPCW have done commendable work in Syria for its involvement in controlling the situation in the aftermath of the use of the chemical weapon. Fine. And one more country which was also alleged for use of chemical weapon is Iraq under Saddam Hussein. And Saddam Hussein government was functional in Iraq, so it has also a secret chemical weapon development program against the rebels inside the country as well as against its enemy in case of war with the outside world. Fine. In the recent past, look at the global history, these two countries, one is Syria, which has used it 2-3 times in recent past, and Iraq regime under Saddam Hussein, which was alleged of developing a secret are running a secret chemical open program. So these two are the most recent instances. So report says by 2021, more than 98% of the world's declared chemical open stockpile have been destroyed because humanity has realized the grave threat associated with these harmful weapon and have taken steps for their elimination. Realizing the problem or the threat, the massive threat of these weapons, they have eliminated. So more than 98% of the world stockpile of chemical weapons have been destroyed. The convention has provisions for systematic evaluation of chemical production facilities as well as for investigation of allegation of use and production of chemical weapons based on intelligence or other state parties. Fine. Certain state powers, such as Assad regime, continue to regularly manufacture and implement such chemicals in combat munitions. Although these chemicals are not scientifically specifically listed as controlled by the CWC, the use of any toxic chemical as a weapon, when used to produce fatality solely or mainly through its toxic action, is in and of itself forbidden by the treaty. Other chemicals, such as white phosphorus, which are highly toxic but are legal under the CWC when they are used by military forces for reasons other than their toxicity. As I told, chemicals have their dual use. So they can use for peaceful purposes, for the development of the country, industrial use, use in the pharmacy and hospital sector or medical sector. But when used to create threat to life and destruction of property, so it is branded as a weapon. When the toxicity is the main criteria for its use, then it is branded as a weapon. Okay, let's see the background of this convention. The CWC augments the Geneva Protocol of 1925. So prior to the Chemical Weapon Convention, there is another treaty which was in operation globally, which is known as the Geneva Protocol, which was agreed in 1925. Fine. Which bans the use but not the development or possession of chemical and biological weapons. This Geneva Protocol of 1925, it has not imposed ban on production or development positions of biological and chemical weapons, but only ban its use. The Chemical Weapon Convention also includes extensive verification measures such as on-site inspections, in stark contrast to the 75 biological weapon conventions, which lacks a verification regime. The Chemical Weapon Convention has a very stringent verification mechanism. That means the OPCW has been given wide power for running a strict and vigilant inspection regime or verification regime under the Chemical Weapon Convention. So, to check that these sorts of chemicals are not used by anyone, causing loss to human life and property. After several changes of name and composition, the mechanism of negotiation evolved into the Conference on Disarmament in 1984. In 1992, the Conference on Disarmament submitted to the United Nations General Assembly its annual report, which contained the text of the Chemical Weapon Convention. It is that Conference on Disarmament which was mandated or given the responsibility to draft a convention controlling chemical weapons, and it was submitted before the United Nations General Assembly. And the UN General Assembly approved the convention on 30th November 1992, and after approval, it was open for signature at Paris in 1993, and the Chemical Weapon Convention remained open for signature till 1997 when it entered into force. Okay. As Hungary signed the agreement as the 65th nation, fulfilling the minimum numbers acceptance to enforce the treaty, so it became the 65th country to accede to this treaty, so it became operational. Because the 65th ratification by the 65th member, Hungary, fulfilled the criteria which allowed this convention to be operational. So it became operational in 1997. So, as per the treaty, the research, development, production, storage, use, and dismantling or destruction of the chemical weapons are to be conducted or comes under scrutiny, and the intergovernmental organization named as OPCW, Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, was created to supervise this activity, how the nations who have been alleged to have chemical weapons, they are dismantling it. And that is to be done under strict physical supervision of the OPCW. And if you see the history, the OPCW since its creation has done commendable work, in eliminating chemical weapons from the world. It has done commendable work. And for this, it has received the Nobel Peace Prize. Because when the Assad regime in Syria used chemical weapons on its people, so there is a humanitarian crisis. So many people died, including children and infants. And during that period, the commendable role played by OPCW resulted in branding the Syrian regime as harmful, threat to humanity, and the role played by the OPCW in con- controlling the situation in the post chemical weapon use period in Syria, how it saved the precious lives of the people there, created the atmosphere for selecting it as the Nobel Peace Prize recipient in the same year. So coming to the organization, must have some idea about the OPCW. This chemical weapon convention is administered by the OPCW, Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. As we discussed earlier, it is an intergovernmental organization. It is an intergovernmental organization. Okay. Created to supervise the chemical weapon conventions and to be practically present to supervise the dismantling of the chemical weapon stockpile and also to check whether any country is developing chemical weapons which may emerge as a threat to the global community. That are the twin purpose of this intergovernmental organization known as chemical weapons, created as the chemical watchdog of the world. As the chemical watchdog of the world. Fine. The convention is administered the OPCW, which acts as a legal platform for specification of the CWC provisions. The Conference of the States Parties is mandated to change the Chemical Weapon Convention and pass regulations on implementation of the CWC requirements. The Technical Secretariat, the organization, conduct inspection to ensure compliance of member states. That means the OPCW has a technical secretariat because this being chemical weapons, it needs a technical team because only general inspectors cannot do anything in this domain, this being a matter of science, chemistry, and chemical weapons. The inspection target destruction facility where permanent monitoring takes place during the destruction. Chemical weapon production facilities which have been dismantled or converted to civil use as well as inspection of the chemical industry. They inspect all, okay, target destruction facilities, whether open, developed, or destroyed. So it has been mandated. CWC mandates that the country who have developed chemical weapons must destroy them. So whether the destruction taking place genuinely or not is to be supervised, and that supervision is by the OPCW under its strict inspection mechanism. Then the chemical weapon production facility may be secretly long, as it is called. Saddam Hussein in Iraq run this chemical weapon establishment from his own palace in a different guise. But based on intelligence report, the technical team from OPCW can visit the suspected chemical weapon production facilities at short notice to verify whether the chemical weapons are being developed and in what quantity they are being developed. Okay, and if the weapons are dismantled, what is the genuineness of this dismantling process? That will be strictly monitored by the OPCW. As well as the most important part is the inspections of the chemical industry, because some country in the guise of running chemical industry run a program called the secret or clandestine chemical weapon development program. They show that this is our chemical industry for civilian use, but in the guise of chemical industry, they practically carry on the program of chemical weapon development. And the mandate of the OPCW is also to ensure or to inspect the chemical industry, because the chemical industry can be diverted for the development of chemical weapons. So, in the name of running chemical industry, if the country is carrying on any nuclear weaponization program, weapon development program, so inspection of the chemical industrial sites can bring that to light. That is why OPCW can inspect the doubtful chemical industrial sites. The Secretariat may furthermore conduct investigation of alleged use of chemical weapons and give assistance for use of chemical weapons. And the OPCW got the Nobel Prize in 2013 for its commendable role in Syria. This was given for its commendable role in Syria, where chemical weapons are used on the civilians. Then, before winding it up, let's see what are the major provisions of this convention. Key points of the convention. This chemical weapon convention prohibits production and use of chemical weapons. It imposes a ban on the production and use of chemical weapons. The most important one. Second is destruction of chemical weapons production facilities. Two things: destruction of chemical weapons and destruction of or closure of the chemical weapon production facilities in the country which has been established. Destruction of all chemical weapons in stockpile, not only in its own country, but if it has transferred it to someone else or abandoned it outside the territory, because that may lead to pollution. So, how the destruction will be done under the OPCW supervision with no negative impact on the environment or on life on earth. Assistance between state parties and the OPCW in case of use of chemical weapons. In case there is nuclear weapon attack by one country upon the other, OPCW with its expertise will come to the rescue of the country or the victim country to save its people from the devastating effect of the chemical weapon use. Fine. An OPCW inspection regime for the production of chemicals which might be converted to chemical weapons is done regularly. Okay. And the inspection must be on fair ground, and the distinction between the chemical weapon development and development of chemical industry research on that domain are to be segregated, separated, and if required, it can take action against the countries. Okay, the official inspection regime for the production of chemicals might give the conventional or chemical weapons because they know that they can just change and may hide the program from the international community, which at times are resorted to bring or to make the international agency full in this matter. So, functioning order being created by the United Nations, the OPCW, and know that chemical weapon manufacturing is confined to few countries, but they are not that responsible countries. This chemical weapon convention want to ensure that these countries who are using chemicals or who are part of the chemical weapon must be very, very careful, because this is popularly known as an weapons of mass destruction. And international cooperation, the peaceful of the chemical industry is very much relevant, which has been highlighted by the convention. Right? Because it is well known there are classes that the countries who have developed chemical weapons, they take the plea of developing this in the guise of a civilian chemical industrial development. So that can very well be looked into or scrutiny by the state and the International Atomic Energy that OPCW, or Organization for Production of Chemical Weapons, the intergovernmental body, must supervise it to ensure that the threat of chemical weapons from the global scenario is no more. Being a weapon of mass destruction, it should be eliminated to save mankind from the devastating effect of use of chemicals as a weapon for mass destruction. But the chemical industry for civilian purpose is permitted for its own activity. Thank you for watching this. We will go on sharing other relevant videos in subsequent classes. Thank you all.